It's July 18th. Thank you for tuning in to the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening in on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we appreciate your support. Throughout the show, we invite you to share your comments and questions at any time. Your engagement fuels our discussion and helps us navigate the world of transportation and logistics together. It's been a minute since we've done a live broadcast. Several weeks, actually. I think in June was our last live broadcast. Next week, we'll be live as well with Cameron Robertson, the CEO of 3PL Systems. And following that, we'll be on site at the Minnesota Trucking Association annual conference. And with the way it looks, we'll likely be putting out a recording for that one, but we may try to do a little live snippet here and there as we're able to. I hope you're all enjoying your summer. I certainly am. We've been getting an inordinate amount of rain in Minnesota, and that puts a few dents in my plans, but I'm really not going to complain. At the moment, it's been a lot better this year than the droughts we've been having for the last few years. And I know some areas of the U.S. are not experiencing that. So we're welcoming the rain. I'm on site in Stowe, Vermont. You can tell because there's a curtain behind me. I tried to open this curtain and work out a way to show the mountain out the window, which is absolutely beautiful, but I couldn't work it out. So the camera just wouldn't allow that to happen. I even tried to go outside, and that didn't quite work out either. So it kind of sucks. I had to close the curtain, but such is life. So recently, the TCA had their refrigerated conference here in Stowe. We're hanging around for a few days after to have a few meetings with a few companies here. And if you haven't been to Stowe, Vermont, it's absolutely beautiful here, and I recommend you check it out. So please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're seeing us on. We appreciate that. We would also appreciate a little bit of help with Facebook. We haven't really focused on that platform, and recently they changed a few things. We have had a substantial amount of engagement there, but we don't have very many followers there. And with this recent change, they now require a certain amount of followers to stream. The follower game is real, and we would appreciate it if you can just follow us on Facebook. Look us up there. Look up GLCS and follow us if you're able to. We'd really appreciate that. So this week we have a couple of great guests on. I've been in the same circles as Brent Bois for many years, but we didn't really officially meet until recently. Brent is the president of Calhoun Truck Lines. And along with Brent, we have Wayne Anderson. And Wayne Anderson is a driver for Calhoun Truck Lines. He's been a driver for companies in the Minneapolis area for a long time. Recently, Wayne won the Minnesota Truck Driver Championship Tank Division, and will be headed to the National Truck Driver Championship in Indianapolis in August. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Nate. Good to be here.
Great to have you. Great to have you. So, Brent, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Wayne. Brent, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Calhoun Truck Lines?
Sure. So I've been operating in the industry, I guess, since 2000. And ironically, Nate, I lived just outside of Stowe for about a year before jumping into the industry way back when. But been fortunate to work inside the trucking industry for the past 24 years. Started out with the company. My father and my uncle were running the business at the time, and I found an opportunity shortly after college to join them, and took over running the business in 2008, and just helped to steadily grow the business ever since then. I purchased it about 10 years ago, and very fortunate to again operate in the industry and work with a lot of great people over the years.
Great. Well, that's, I mean, 24 years in the industry. That's a number. So, and if you're anything like me, I just hit 28, and you look back and you go, where did the time go? So, and I know the gentleman sitting next to you has a similar tenure as well, but anytime you look at it, you know, the decades seem to go fast, and they seem to go faster. They don't slow down. So, you know, so Wayne, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, I've been in the trucking industry since 2001, 23 years. I started out at Schneider. I went through their driving school, and I was there. I did multiple things with them. I did team driving over the road, and I did some dedicated routes. And then I moved on to LTL with Midwest Motor Express, and I spent 13 years with them. And now I'm here at Calhoun. It's been just over a year and a half, really enjoying it. And that's where I've been.
Great. So how long did you spend time over the road?
It was probably 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, got your stripes in over the road, moved to other positions then, and did what a lot of guys do, right? So for the most part, at least, just maneuvered off the road as quickly as you could. So I mean, at least over the road side, yeah, absolutely. So, so what got you into the industry, Wayne? I mean,
I've always been interested in trucks, and just seeing them go down the road, and I always got excited about them. So ever since just being a little kid, you know, just like the rest of them, you see that truck and you get excited. And that's what I always wanted to do right out of high school. And so that was like my only my option to me was just to drive truck, because I enjoyed it so much, just enjoyed watching them. So as soon as I turned 21, I was off to Green Bay. So that's how I got into it.
We share that in common. I was a similar age when I got behind the wheel. So I wouldn't say it was something I planned on doing in high school, but it ended up being kind of the career path. And it ended up, you know, when I got behind the wheel, it was because the original career path I decided I didn't want to do, and that was law enforcement. And then I thought, hey, I'm going to go drive truck and see the world, and just do it as a 2-year plan to figure out what I'm actually going to do. And then, you know, here it is decades later, where, you know, the transportation industry claws you in, and it doesn't let you go. So, so yeah, now I'm in Stowe, Vermont, talking with the refrigerated conference at the TCA event here. So, but yeah, so that's great. I mean, there isn't a lot of guys from our generation that grew up wanting to become drivers. I mean, that's something that you don't see a lot of, and especially today. You know, I was just talking with another gentleman who owns a company, and Brent, what's your thought on that, being an owner of a company? I mean, how many people do you know that that are coming up, that are younger, that, you know, have that career path in mind to start young as a driver?
Not many.
Not many.
And as you both have alluded to, I mean, I never saw myself being in this business either.
Yeah,
Like you said, it's just not a typical career path for most folks.
right. It's usually the second choice, even though then we stay in it for a lifetime. So it's very common, and there's a lot of discussion in the industry right now about how to make it the first choice instead of the second, because it is a good industry to work in. So as is driving, I think there's a segment of the age that we have, which I don't want to pivot the podcast to that. We weren't planning on talking about that, but maybe we'll come back to that discussion at a later time, because I do want to get into Wayne and his recent achievements. So maybe we'll slide to that, and we can come back to the discussion on that desire to become a truck driver early on in life. So Wayne, you recently had a very interesting accomplishment, and that was the Minnesota Trucking. You won the Minnesota Truck Driving Championship for the tank division, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Now, how many times had you participated in that particular competition?
I have participated in the Minnesota TDC this would have been my 7th year.
Okay, so 7th time is the charm.
Right. It takes a lot of work, so you really got to work hard, study, do your pre-trip. You can't just jump right in. It takes knowledge and understanding, skill.
Yeah, and that's coming from a guy who's been driving for 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's 7 years you've participated. So you know your way around a truck as well as anyone can, and 7 years of doing this as well. So it's what I'm doing is qualifying what it takes to actually win this particular award. So you spent, when you first came into it, you were 16 years or 15, 16 years in the industry as a driver. And you spent substantial amount of time. I've talked to a couple other of the folks that have won these other divisions. So you get some idea of how complicated it is and the amount of things that you have to know. You really become an expert on every aspect of running that particular division, and how the truck runs. So what do you end up having to do to train for these competitions?
Well, the first thing you have to do is read the book, the Guide for Drivers, and it just talks about the history and things that drivers should know, safety and stuff like that. And you just want to read the book, because otherwise you're going to go into it. You'll know a handful of it without even reading the book, but you want to study the book, and then you want to work on your pre-trip. Really look at the brakes and the tires and stuff that sometimes you might overlook on a daily. So you want to focus on that. And then also you want to practice if you can, just driving around cones and just trying to figure out where your truck is at, the steer tires, and like you're stopping on a scale or when you're backing up to a dock. You want to make sure you're getting all that. You're really paying attention to where you are. You're not just slamming into the dock and you stop just before it, so things like that. That's what I do to practice.
Did you have anyone helping you through this process?
The company that you're with supports you. I usually just jump right in, because I always want to just be better driver, and just improve my skills and knowledge, and just be better on the road. So that's why I do it.
So that was kind of the desire originally, was to just be the best that you can be and jump into it that way. And that was your initial desire. That was a question that I guess I had is why you started.
when you're out on the road and people are like, man, you put that right in the hole. And it's like, sometimes it takes guys a long time to do that. I'm like, well, we're supposed to be able to get it in there. And I'm like, am I really that good? Let me go to this TDC and find out.
Yeah,
So it really puts you in place like, okay, I got skill, but they could be a little better even.
sure, sure. What would you say are some of the challenges, the bigger challenges that you face during the competition? What would you say are the more difficult points when you're going through the competition? The areas you have to spend the most time on?
You really want to focus on the driving, the skills, because you'll be going through you'll hop in that truck, and you'll get the butterflies, and you just got to get all the emotion. You got to focus and get the emotion out, and because you'll go across a problem and you'll think that you're doing good, and then you'll see that the score later was bad or you missed it. You're like, I couldn't been by much, and kind of beat yourself up a little bit. But you got to hurry up and reboot because you're going to the next problem. So you just got to stay focused.
Yeah, if you if you don't perform well in one thing, you kind of got to move on to the next. And
Right.
the sooner you do that, and you just let it go. Yeah, I think that's a lesson in life in general. That's not even for the competition. I think oops, I made a mistake, and let's get going on the next thing, because you're going to make a mistake all the time. So, when is there a technique that you use? Is there, you can't use a list, right? So when you're going through this, you have to memorize everything. And I know, with a pre-trip, there's a lot of information that you have to have memorized through that. And this is a pre-trip in a lot of ways on steroids. And I know, everybody's putting their hands on everything to make sure that you get noticed, that you're looking at everything and that you're touching everything. So what sort of technique do you kind of develop to make sure that you're going through everything and that you're being credited for all points on this competition?
Yeah, that's what really helped me out this year with my pre-trip, is I made myself a plan in my head, and I started in the cab. They'll have you stand in front of the truck with your back to it, and then when you're ready, you'll turn around. And I started out in the cab, went through, checked the seatbelt, fire extinguisher, make sure there's no contraband or anything in the truck, loose debris. Then you jump out and you start checking the driver's side, the door, the footsteps, the tires, the lug nuts. And then you move around the front. You're checking all of that. You want to do it in different stages. And you don't want to stay there too long, because you usually only have about 9 minutes. And you just want to work different sections and go around and look for different things, the brakes, the grommets for the brake chambers, the reflective tape. So yeah, you just want to work in sections and work all the way around like you normally would on your daily pre-trip.
So how has this impacted your career, and how not only your career, but then potentially your personal life as well? But, going back 7 years when you started this, how is it impacted? And then now that you actually won at the state level, how is that impacted? So it's kind of a long question to answer, but.
Trying to think how I've improved quite a bit. Obviously, I've taken first, but it's made just me safer on the road. After you're done competing, you realize what you've picked up from the course, and you apply that to your driving. And same with the written test. You use that knowledge that you've picked up, and then you apply it when you're out there. Same with the pre-trip for sure. Is it made me check my equipment better and better operator that way.
Sure. How has it affected your family? I mean, do they? Does that have
they're along
anything?
for the ride. I'm going to the TDC. You guys coming to cheer me on? So,
Fair
No,
enough.
they enjoy it, and they like being there, especially the son. He likes cheering me on to wearing the shirt. So they like
Yeah.
being there and making new friends as well.
That's good.
Nate,
It's like
one
going,
of the things
yeah.
that Wayne commented on after the event was, you mentioned that it was your time spent in the drayage segment of the industry that has really helped you improve in the pre-trips too. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that for sure. Yeah, being in dray is, you definitely want to be checking your chassis, and that really helped me with my pre-trip because there was pins missing on the push rods in the pre-trip, and I think you would overlook that normally. So yeah, that definitely helped.
Yeah, are you touching a lot more trailers and chassis, and I guess chassis and pieces of equipment probably a lot more than what you would have at your LTL? Well, I suppose you
Yeah, I
probably
hear.
dropped the hook a bit, but
Yeah, I hear you're touching a lot of different chassis that are shared with different drays.
right.
So they're not owned, so somebody might misuse it, and you want to make sure that's good before you take it out of the rail yard.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was working at another company where they owned their own trailers, they took care of them, and the drivers all used the same equipment, and everybody took care of it. So yeah, it's a lot different.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got to keep your eye open for the motoring public and yourself. And when you're touching that many pieces of equipment, that makes a ton of sense. So Brent, when Wayne came to you and said, "Hey, I like doing this," how did you end up supporting that? I mean, from a business aspect, obviously, that's a great thing for you to support, but how does Calhoun support this on their side?
Yeah, I mean, certainly going forward and preparation now for Indianapolis, trying to do our part in supporting Wayne and his family on the logistics side, right? Just making sure that they're going to be set up down there and down in Indianapolis in advance of the competition, so they can enjoy the experience and be ready to go, and Wayne can enjoy it with his family. So as an organization, I feel like that's the best way that we can support Wayne, and I'll be down there cheering him on as well.
Great. No, that's awesome. And that's the weekend of August 21st. Is that right? Or the week of August 21st?
Yeah, August 21st through the 24th.
Gotcha. So can you walk through what a competition, and I know you haven't necessarily been to the national level, but what does a competition day look like at a state level?
At the state level, you come in, register, then there's an opening ceremony. You meet your group leaders for the different classes, and then they tell you about the day, and then you move off right into the written test, basically.
Yep.
So you get the written test out of the way right away in the morning, and then they do a course preview, and they talk about the different challenges on the course that you'll face, and then you'll have time for question and answer there, and then you'll go out on the course and do a walkthrough. Each class will walk through the course quietly, and you can look at the course that way. But with that too, you get in the truck and you're like, okay, this is a little different. It's a different perspective from up here. So the walkthrough is nice, but getting in the truck is different too. And then you'll go back and some guys will start doing the driving course, and others will go into the pre-trip. So they have both of those going simultaneously. And that's pretty much the day until everybody's had their turn.
So what advice? So anyone that wanted to get into competing, from a driver perspective, what advice would you give them on how to move into that? I mean, obviously any driver is capable of competing, but what sort of advice would you give them if they're interested in doing so?
Yeah, you want to be safe. You have to be accident free for 12 months just to be even compete at the state level. and the nationals. So safety is number one. And just prepare. I would say come in and just try it out. Some guys actually do win on their first year, so it is possible.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, definitely come in and try it, and I would be yeah, definitely
Give it a go. So safe driving for a year, and you can come in and give it a shot. So
correct.
Great. So future goals for Wayne are what? You obviously want to win nationals, right? So
right, yeah. Yeah, nationals we'll try our best there. I mean, who knows, maybe it's possible, but my goals are just to be, as far as driving, just to be professional on the road and continue to improve in the understanding of the trucking industry. And yeah, I just want to be in the industry, would be good at it and be professional and help the other guy out as well. So
great. So you've been driving a long time, and a lot of that's been more of a local type role, LTL, now in dray. What we talked a little bit before we started the episode. We talked last week a little bit. What's your thoughts on the? I mean, 7 years. So 7 years you've been competing. That means 8 years you've been a safe driver, at least, if not longer. So, what safety measures do you believe are essential for truck drivers? What do you do on a daily basis that are fundamental? I mean, some of us that have been in the industry for a while know some of these things, but kind of what do you think is something that every driver should be doing every day as they're outside of the standard pre-trips and ensuring that your vehicle's safe, but kind of what do you believe what's your core belief on safety?
I guess my biggest thing would be you got to have a good following distance. You don't want to be surprised out on the road. You want to see it coming. You want to be able to anticipate it. And that's really going to save you in a lot of different situations. And then just yielding. Don't take the yield, give it, and always check the blind spots, checking your mirrors. Don't get tunnel vision. Keep your head turning. The one thing I like to use is actually the Smith system, which is aim high in steering, get the big picture, keep your eyes moving, leave yourself an out and make sure they see you. If you do all of those things, you're going to have a pretty successful career. And my biggest thing, I think, is leave yourself an out, especially in LTL. Make sure you can get out still.
Sure.
When you're making those deliveries. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
No, I appreciate that. That's all great wisdom. So I think if that you kind of set it up right there. So so flipping a little bit over to Brent here, as we kind of transition some of this. Brent, you've been in part of Calhoun now for 24 years and owned it for a good chunk of that time now as well. Family business. How has this industry evolved over the last, and both of you can kind of answer this question. Actually, I think this is a great question for both of you as I'm kind of crafting it further. How has the industry evolved over the last 20 some odd years? And what's been most pertinent for you? So I'm going to start with Brent, and I'm going to ask the exact same question to Wayne, because we have one coming from a company owner and the other coming from the perspective of the driver. And I kind of like how that ends up crafting. So Brent, how has the industry evolved, and what's been most pertinent to you over the last 24 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can talk about the evolution in the industry over this period of time without highlighting technology, right? And the role that it's played. And I remember, starting out in the dispatch chair 24 years ago, utilizing T cards to dispatch drivers and talking with our drivers on the old Nextel phones. And and that's how things started out. But it was shortly after, within the next year or two, we moved to our first TMS at that time, and then as the years have gone on, of course, technology has just kind of been omnious, coming at us from all different angles, on the operations side and the safety side, and of course within the truck. So, I mean, that would be the first place that I would start, and it's really interesting how that's accelerated even over the past 5 or 10 years.
Wayne, how would you answer that question? How is technology, or how has the trucking industry evolved over the last 20 some odd years, and what's been most pertinent to you?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the trucks, the technology that they're putting in them, um, it's really changed. You used to really have to learn how to drive the truck and shift the gears and use the brakes and use the stuff like that. And it's just the trucks have changed dramatically, and it's just interesting to see and adapt to it. Um, I didn't like it at first, but I guess the automatic isn't too bad in the city, especially LTL. Um, but I've noticed that a lot. We used to have Qualcomms in the trucks to communicate with dispatch. Now there's a lot of tablets that they're utilizing. So yeah, I think that's what I've seen difference of.
I remember the first set of automatics and the battle that came with those. So, and now, for the most part, everything's automatic. But I also remember the how nice that they'd end up being in a city driving scenario. So, but yeah, I concur with you, Wayne. It took a minute. So,
Yeah, it's getting used to.
yeah, but when I started driving was in the late 90s, and pre-cell phone, pre-GPS, pre-everything. No one even heard of, well, I suppose we heard of GPS, but you still had to call for your directions to a shipper, a consignee, and now the capabilities that are out there now are amazing. I don't know how we operated in the 90s, and to Brent's point of T cards, that's how I first dispatched, was through T cards as well, and a filing system on a wall with trucks, drivers, and trailers and orders, and ran a good number of trucks that way. So it's been an evolution. We track a few data points, and now we track thousands of data points, and it's a substantial change. So I appreciate those answers. Yeah, there's been a lot of change throughout the industry over the last 20 years. And sometimes I'll ask that question over the last 5 or 10 years, but when you get people on that have been around for a while, it's nice to ask the 20-year question. And I would say more often than not, the technology is the answer. So, so Brent, kind of rolling back to you, how do you and your team work together to ensure safe and timely delivery of freight? So Wayne's talked a lot about safety, and pretty much everything that he's talked about has been safety centric. So I want to focus in on that, because obviously your organization is safety centric. So if you can talk a little bit about safety in your organization, and how you are safety forward, I think that just kind of works together with this topic.
Sure. So I think to begin, you have to have buy-in from everyone, right? And that starts, with even in customer service, who's, taking the order, putting it in, scheduling that order, knowing how many drivers you have to try and move the next day, and kind of setting that whole system up for success, right? And making sure we're not putting our drivers in a bad situation where they're overbooked or someone feels like they need to be, you know, trying to hit the next appointment and not allowing enough time for that. And I don't think that that's ever really been too much of an issue, because everyone, again, that's involved in that entire process is kind of on the same page and bought in. But it does take everyone, and including our regional managers who are not only responsible for their respective terminals, but they're delivering that message constantly to our drivers on a daily basis, and having open dialogue with our fleet about what's going on in the field. I think what their challenges are and where there are opportunities to improve, be it with equipment, or taking the data points that we get with the technology that we use and giving that information back out to our drivers. A lot of times I kind of use the analogy, at least a lot with our regional managers, is, they're kind of like a Major League Baseball batting coach, who has to continuously give instruction and feedback to even the best hitters out there. And
Right.
I feel like we're constantly doing that with our fleet.
No, that makes sense. I mean, no matter who you are, you look at professional coaches, you look at anything, getting that feedback always is great. That person that's looking outside in always has some objective point. So it doesn't matter how good you are, you can always have. It's always great to get feedback, especially if it's constructive. So, what? So I asked this to Wayne earlier about someone wanting to get into the competitions earlier, but I'm going to ask this for both of you. But I'm going to ask it kind of in two different directions. So, Brent, what advice would you give someone that's looking to get into the trucking industry today? Maybe not as a driver. I'll ask Wayne that question. But for you, more on the office or operations role. So what advice would you give someone looking to start a career in trucking today, more in an office-centric position?
Yeah. And I think this would apply to, probably most industries or any industry, but regardless of which company you choose, or, which position or path in the industry that you choose, try and find a good mentor. Try and set yourself up for success by, hopefully choosing an environment with a good leader, whether that's, your immediate boss or supervisor or someone else in the organization, that you can, continuously get good feedback and helps you grow as a person, as an employee, inside the industry. So I just think that's critical, especially for someone starting out in a new industry.
No, I concur on that. Mentorship is important. Lots of times, though, you can't pick a mentor. A mentor kind of pops up, and then you look at it 10 years after the fact, and you go, "Wow, that was a mentor." I look back, and I have 3 or 4 mentors in my career. At the time, I would have told you they weren't. They were probably more annoying people that I had to listen to, but now I look at them extremely fondly, and all of them are retired, but so many times you don't even realize you have a mentor, but you find that person who is a sieve of knowledge, and you take that, and whether you identify them as a mentor, just as someone that's got a lot of knowledge transfer in you, you grasp onto that. So I agree completely. And then, I'm going to add a little bit more to that. If you are a veteran in the industry, be that person. So be that person to those who will listen, in all cases. And if they're not going to listen, then don't put the effort in. But if they do listen, that's how we make better people, better employees. That's important to the industry. It's important to people. So, and whether you want to be labeled as a mentor or not, you don't get to find that out for a decade. So, Wayne, so putting that question to you, I asked you earlier, what does it take to get into the competitions, but what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to become a driver today?
I would say first, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And then find a good school. You want to learn a lot. You want to find a school that's going to teach you the right way, the right procedures, and give you the knowledge that you need when you're out on the road. So I think if you find a good school and a good company that maybe even hires the trains, you want to be prepared when you go on the road. So I would say definitely jump in and do it. You're going to enjoy it, especially if you like driving. And you'll get paid to drive, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Especially when you go to work and it doesn't even feel like it.
That's absolutely the key. Is if you like going on road trips in your car, then you're a prospect. So if you hate going on a road trip in your car, don't bother. So
Or do local.
Right, or do local. So, and I suppose you now have the capability of potentially hiring into some of those roles. So, many years ago, you had to spend time over the road before you could look into that. So, Wayne, how do you balance the demands, or how do you balance, driving? And I'm not sure, how many hours you work in a week, but typically a driving role is a lot of work. So you do that, and you're practicing for your truck driver championships. How do you kind of balance the life of a driver? And you have I think, was it a 9-year-old son? Is that right?
Yeah,
if I
9 years
recall.
old.
So you got the family life, you got the driver life. So how does that all balance out for you? And how do you make sure you stay present at home?
Yeah,
First, it's Calhoun that awesome, and you have the perfect schedule.
No, I usually do about a 10-hour day, usually 50 hours a week then. So it can be pretty long. I usually start early enough where I can usually get off, at dinner time. And it does help to be home every day. That's a big plus. And yeah, definitely home time is important. You need that time to be home in the evenings and relax and do family activities and have dinner and just to be there. And then to get ready for the TDC, I just do that on the breaks, and I usually bring the book with me. And when I'm driving down the road, you're kind of practicing there as well. So it all mixes into one. It all comes together.
No, understood that. Well, what's nice about it is you're able to kind of practice as you go. So, and Brent, is a lot of your operation kind of daytime hours, or do you work 24/7?
I don't know that it's 24/7. I would say for the most part, it's daytime hours. But there's a lot or most evenings where there's some work getting done.
Sure.
I've learned to balance it a little bit better over the years. It was not so good at it about 10 or 15 years ago. Pretty terrible, actually. But with 3 kids, as they start to get older, you realize you only have so much time with them in the house, and just kind of make it work.
No, I can relate. So, yeah, sometimes you just gotta make it all go. So, so kind of transitioning here a little bit. We'll move off of some of the topics that we had. I like to ask some kind of off topic questions. So, one that we've had fun with in the past is if you can add one ridiculous feature to your fleet of trucks or your truck, what would that be? So, in the past, an answer has been a security monkey. So, basically you hit a button and the monkey comes out. You might have seen the commercial of the trunk monkey. So that was one that was said a few weeks ago or a month or two ago. So once again, if you could add one ridiculous feature to a truck, what would it be?
Ridiculous. I was thinking some visors would be cool, but that's probably not ridiculous.
Any ideas? It's a tough one when you get down to it. So,
I mean, there's a lot of things I want to add to the truck, but it's like, chrome fenders, chrome visors, chrome, all this, I haven't really thought about anything ridiculous. Maybe a goofy air freshener.
There you go. Well, fair enough. So, all right, we're striking out there. So, all right, well, let's try this. If you were to start a food truck business, so if Calhoun Trucking Company Trucking would if Calhoun Trucking were to start a food truck business, what would be your signature dish and why?
Boy, I gotta go with tacos. Just simply because they're one of my favorites, and I'll just leave it at that.
Any particular type of taco?
No, I think we'd have to mix it up. We'd have a nice variety and hopefully a little something for everyone.
Just make it work for all. So
that's right.
Yeah. All right. So let's flip into nothing without trucking a little bit. And I asked a few questions to everybody about this kind of every week. Nothing Without Trucking is a ATA initiative that is really educating the public about what trucking actually is. 80% of communities rely exclusively on trucking to receive their goods. There's 8.4 million people in the U.S. that are employed in trucking-related jobs. 72.6% of all U.S. freight is moved by trucks. Another interesting statistic: 98.5% of pollutants have been eliminated from truck tailpipes or exhaust over the last 40 years. Trucks are 60 times cleaner than what they were in the 90s. So 60 trucks on the road today are putting out the emissions of one truck from the 90s. But the public doesn't necessarily know a lot of these statistics. And the trucking industry is largely under attack by a variety of different entities, including environmental groups and trial lawyers and etc. And the idea of this initiative is to educate the general public so that there's more acceptance to the industry on this. So what we do is just ask some questions provided by the ATA around Nothing Without Trucking. So some of those questions, and you guys can answer these. And I'll present it, and you guys can both answer it. How has technology changed your career? This is one that we kind of talked about earlier. How has technology changed your career in trucking over the years? So Wayne, I'll answer that to you first. You mentioned earlier kind of the technology in the truck, but we didn't specifically answer this question this way. So how has technology changed your career in the truck over the years?
It's really I guess it probably has made safer with all the sensors that it has, stopping distance and that adaptive cruise control. Um, I suppose that has helped. Really, sorry on that one.
No, that's all right. And then Brent, on your side, how has technology changed your career in the trucking industry over the years?
Well, somewhat recently. I mean, when the pandemic hit, it allowed us to transition to a work at home environment pretty seamlessly, and since then, kind of offered a hybrid working environment for a lot of our employees. And when you talk about the work-life balance, which you asked about earlier, I think it's given a lot of time back to a number of folks who would, spend 45 minutes to an hour each way in the car going to and from work. So, from that aspect, as it relates to employee retention, better work-life balance, the technology platforms that we've been operating on has I think really benefited the community here at Calhoun.
No, I think a lot of people realized what was capable and who needed to be where. I used to travel 40 weeks a year, and I don't anymore. So there's no need. You find that a lot of us discovered a lot of things like that through COVID. So I appreciate that. Next question. What is the most rewarding part of working in the trucking industry? Wayne, you want to take that one first?
I would say honking the horn. Nothing better than making a kid smile.
I love that part too. So yeah, the kids smile. There's actually a statement on there talking, or I have a video clip out there talking with another driver on the podcast back in January, talking about the difference between a Volvo horn and a Pete horn. And there's a clip of us both doing this because it's a Volvo, and you gotta, the kids are going like this, and you don't want to hit the horn like that. So, but yeah, no, I get you entirely. So
no, I mean, I like being a part of the industry. You're one driver out of 3.5 million that keeps the America moving, and it's just nice to be, just a small part of that. I think is a big deal.
And when you really get down to it, if you figure how much freight you move on a daily basis, it may be a small part of the whole, but it's a big part of your community. You're moving a lot of freight on a daily basis, and that impacts a lot of people's lives. So, Brent, how would you answer what is the most rewarding part of working in the trucking industry?
Hands down, the people that I get to work with inside and outside of our organization. We've have employees that have been with us, almost as long as I have, and to see them raise their family, and different people from all different walks of life. A lot of people, as you mentioned earlier, who kind of mistakenly found themselves in this industry, in this business. And that's always been really interesting to me, and I've really enjoyed it. And like I said, whether it's folks inside the organization or a lot of the freight that we move is international, so I get to meet and get introduced to people and a lot of different companies that move a lot of different freight, and it's really exciting for me to see how they operate and what they have to do in a daily business to make their business run, and how we interact with each other. So the people from all walks of life has been really interesting and rewarding for me.
Great answer. Love it. People are everything. This is certainly a people business, and we interact with a lot of them. So gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on today. We're going to start wrapping things up. You're welcome to hang around for a few minutes. I'm just going to be talking about kind of what we have coming up here over the next few weeks, and a few little items to wrap things up, but I definitely appreciate you coming on. It's been great. Wayne, I hope you absolutely nail it in Indianapolis, and if you do, we'll have to have you back on for a few minutes to celebrate that here in a few weeks, or a little over a month. So hopefully we hear some good news. So
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm excited to go and really looking forward to it.
perfect. So if you guys want to hang on for a minute, I'll kind of wrap things up. So appreciate you both coming on.
Thanks, Nate.
All right. So we have a couple announcements. So once again, freight movement. We've been talking a lot about this. We've had a few events with freight movement. We're organizing a few more events. There's a whole bunch of them in discussion, to be honest with you, but we don't have them all necessarily organized and up yet. We have a nice little reel talking about freight movement at this moment that I'm going to show. It's a couple minute and a half long. So we're going to run that right now.
I think the power of freight movement is that this industry has been so inundated with events and that are just produced on a colossal scale that connection that we talked about really has evaporated. And so when we start talking about smaller groups where the sole purpose is just to interact with your colleagues in a similar space, then we have a singular goal that we're focusing on, and it's without all of the distractions that come with a major event and likely also the expense.
The idea of freight movement is that just continued growth in understanding how we build out our network, our community, and really investing in those connections. It can be as simple or as purposeful as giving support to organizations that are allowing that connection, and giving our folks on our teams another outlet to connect themselves, grow and learn in the industry, and encouraging them to step out in the industry and just grow themselves as an individual. But also, I think it's the idea of doing a connection with your community, right? Things where we can connect together in person, and really actually build meaningful relationships.
So once again, super excited about freight movement and where we are going with that. Spoke about it the other day with an upcoming podcast, another freight podcast with Whitney Johnson-Cowell and Robert Bain. Episodes should be dropping really, really soon with that. There's a few of them recorded. I don't have the exact date yet, but we should be seeing them very, very soon. GLCS will be, I think we can run next week here. So next week, we have, I think I mentioned it earlier, Cameron Robertson, the CEO of 3PL Systems. So Cameron and I will chop it up here next Thursday at 1 p.m. That'll be live. The following week, we'll be at the Minnesota Trucking Association annual conference, and we have a whole crew of people that's going to be there. We may try to pop live, but it'll be at weird times. So expect the 1 p.m. Thursday to probably be a recording. We hope to have a number of interviews from that conference that we'll put together and be able to bring forward to everyone on Thursday at 1 o'clock. So with that all being said, we're going to wrap this one up. So appreciate Brent Bois, appreciate Wayne Anderson. Wish Wayne the best at the National Truck Driving Championship in Indianapolis here in just over a month. And stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.